Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Intimacy of Race presents Coffee and Conversations. My special guest today is Veronica Monet. And Veronica is an internationally acclaimed sexual and spiritual empowerment change agent. And she began her activism in college when she volunteered for domestic shelter, and since then has been really vocal and highly visible spokesperson for sex worker rights as well as LGBTQ, which I love. And today her activism includes working for John Robbins' Food Revolution Network to bring consciousness and compassion to our food choices. So Veronica also has a show called The Shame Free Zone as well. And she recently is launching a new video series called Racism, Channeling Your Sacred Rage. So welcome, Veronica. Did I get that right or did I do something wrong?
No, you got everything right. I'm just going to make one small correction in case Ocean Robbins is listening in. I don't actually work for the Food Revolution. I am John Robbins' personal assistant.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying that. And so Veronica and I did not call each other to color coordinate, but every time we get on together, we somehow happen to be channeling similar colors in our, it's like school, like, oh my God, you're wearing what I'm wearing.
I know.
So I'm so grateful to have you on today because I know that when you and I have talked in the past, you've shared some experience that you've had as a white person actually becoming aware and recognizing racism. So, the story I'm talking about is the one you shared when you were dating a Black man. And so
it wasn't the first time that I had been in a relationship with a Black man either. So, I mean, it's embarrassing really when I think about the level of denial and just not tuning into it. I was thinking about this morning. So much about it was that I thought it was enough that I loved them. I thought that was enough. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize that not understanding the way that this society and this world is for them wasn't really an act of love. But that was the ignorance that I brought to it.
No, well, thank you for that honesty. And, I just wanted to say to people who are watching either live or on the replay, please share your comments, share who you are, share where you're tuning in from so that we can connect with you on a deeper level. Because, with what Veronica just shared is, I love how you say it's embarrassing now. And, what I've been experiencing in some of the reactions of non-Black, white presenting people is the shame, guilt, embarrassment, and just like, how did I not, see this? And like a lot of it is like a surprise. So, if you have anything that, a story or anything that you can share with just exactly what you were speaking of in your past relationships that were some blind spots now that you can see probably a bit more clearly now.
Much more clearly now.
Uh-huh.
This would have been back in the early 90s. I was 29, and we were, my boyfriend and I, we'd been together for about 2 years. We'd lived together for part of that time, and we both had colds. So we'd parked our car, and we walked across the street to go get cold medication. Well, we jaywalked to do it. Lots of people jaywalk. We didn't think it was a thing. And here comes this motorcycle cop, and he pulls us over. I've never before in my life been pulled over while walking. And he immediately starts evidencing this really harsh attitude. I, as a white person, had never experienced a cop being so disrespectful towards me. And I was offended. I was shocked. I was like, what's going on here? And he immediately starts zeroing in on my boyfriend and demanding that he present some kind of ID or threatening to pull him in as indigent for not having ID on him. And we're saying, but his wallet's in the car. We can go across the street and get it for you right now. He wasn't having that. So finally, he looks at me and he says, I suppose you're going to vouch for him, aren't you? And I was like, what? What is he saying to me? And he wrote us a ticket, and then he rode off on his motorcycle. And I looked at my boyfriend and I said, oh, that cop was racist. And my boyfriend looked at me and said, oh, you noticed.
Captain Obvious here.
It was one of those moments where I was just like, oh, this happens all the time.
Yeah.
And I did not know it.
And how did that, what feelings, if you can remember back? Oh, I remember.
Grief.
Yeah.
I felt a lot of grief.
Grief.
That anyone could live like that all the time.
Mm.
I mean, I found that really traumatic and unnerving and scary and threatening. And it's like, here you are, just two human beings going to go get some cold medication. And all of a sudden, there's this threat of jail, of arrest.
Mm.
It was shocking. And the grief that came in was, why didn't I know this?
Mm.
Yeah.
And what just came up for me in that moment was, being a Black man in America. I don't know, what town was this in?
Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay.
The land of Rodney King.
Yeah, yeah. But just the fact that how emasculating that is for the men in the Black community to not even be able to stand up for their rights and defend themselves.
Right.
Could be deadly. Most, a lot of times is deadly. How many more times has it been deadly and it's just not been captured on cell phone video? And a lot of these families are fighting alone because it's not out there. It's only the ones that we see that have us enraged. But nobody saw that experience you and your boyfriend had, right? Oh, Veronica, are you frozen, love? We lost her. Hopefully she'll unfreeze and come back. But the point I want to make to anybody who's still watching or listening is that what is coming to light now and the awareness that the non-Black community is now having. I really hope it's not me that's frozen and that's still moving. Hang on, guys. Let me just check this to see if I want to see if we're still showing up live. Yes, I am still showing up live, and it is Veronica that's frozen. Oh my goodness, I hope she can figure it out and come back soon. But the point I wanted to make, and one of the reasons why I did ask Veronica on, is because she shared that story with me before. And what I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is, please don't be shocked when you hear these stories, when you hear the stories of how Black men and women get profiled and how we're spoken to and how we're treated and how we immediately lose our rights as citizens of this country to defend ourselves because of the fear of being unfairly treated, hurt, or, as we see in some cases, even killed, jailed and killed, just for standing up for ourselves and our rights. And it's very, very, it's like a form of PTSD or abuse or victimization that we kind of live with and carry on our shoulders for our life, and we grow up with it in our households. And so what Veronica is sharing now is the fact that the shame, guilt, and embarrassment in the white community should not stop you. Let me see if she's texting me. No, should not stop you from moving forward. not to stay in that space of shame and guilt and embarrassment for what you didn't know. But as you are knowing, as it's coming to light, as you are becoming aware of some of the things that are possible, that have been happening, and what's possible for you to do, and how you can learn and how you can educate yourself in order to take a stand, for the systemic injustices that the Black community and other underserved communities have been exposed to, how we've been profiled and abused, and really realize that this systemic level of abuse that we have endured for hundreds and hundreds of years has created a certain resilience in us, to where a lot of times we don't speak about it. We don't bring it up because we know that we have to spend a lot of time educating and making people aware and saying like, this is what's happening and it's not a surprise. All right, let me see if I can get her back in. She's back.
I'm here. Hi.
There you are. Welcome back.
What I had to do is I had to go on my phone. So.
Well, I'm glad you made it back here.
I have
Erotica Monet. I love the new name.
What does it say?
It says Erotica Monet.
Oh no! Spell check.
But it's meant to say Veronica Monet, but apparently,
it's meant to say Veronica Monet, but we don't
apparently we're learning a little bit more about Veronica Erotica.
And I apologize for the camera shake, but I'm holding this with my hands. So.
No worries, no worries. Yeah. We've dealt with technical problems before, and we've gotten through that. So, one of the things that I was sharing with our viewers, little noise in the background, honey.
Don't know what to do about that. Sorry.
Okay, it might be maybe the phone was hitting something. It's like a click, click. Do you hear it?
I do hear it, and all I can say is I've had the technical difficulties this morning.
Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't know if the phone was hitting something, but I was just sharing with the audience some of the embarrassment, maybe shame and guilt that you now have, now that you're more aware of just how deep this is. Can you speak into that a little bit more? And as someone who has this shame-free zone, how you help other people over that shame.
The empathy is supposed to be the antidote to shame. Brene Brown preaches this all the time, and I agree. So it's important, just like what you're creating right here, Eva, is an opportunity for people to share their shame, and that in itself is very healing. But I teach one additional component to healing shame that Brene Brown doesn't teach, and that is taking responsibility and making amends.
Yes.
So I think that when you start to see your omissions or your perpetrations, whatever category it's in, that to take responsibility for that and make an amends actually lifts the shame off your shoulders. That actually creates for you a sense of dignity and integrity and empowerment, so that you are more integrated. But if you're just focused on the empathy part, I don't think that quite turns the corner. I think it's really important to take responsibility and make amends.
And when it comes to empathy, it's really impossible to put yourself in the experience or the shoes of a Black or brown person. And so actually having more I think we need to be believed. As Black people, we need to share our stories more to get it out there, so that you can have compassion and try to get a sense of understanding and compassion for what we have and are enduring. And and I know like the definition of empathy is really kind of putting yourself in someone else's shoes. But I think that's where it can get frustrating, because the fact that we grow up with it, it's not something that just an experience we happened, like somebody died, or we, were in an abusive relationship, or, like an event. It's actually ingrained in us systemically that it's really hard to have true empathy for it, if that makes any sense. But what I want to kind of portray to people is to just listen and believe and kind of hear our hearts and our experience and the pain and almost like a PTSD that's ingrained in us, to try to just have compassion for, like, wow, that sucks. I have no idea what that's like, but I can't imagine. Just like me, losing a child is not something that I can experience and know that pain. I can only imagine, unless I actually have that experience in my own life. And tell me, you had said in the beginning that you're embarrassed now a little bit about how unaware you were during the time you had with your partners that were Black men. What does that feel like for you? Tell me what's coming up for you.
It's like, what kind of denial have I been operating under? And of course, what kind of white privilege the denial is like, what kind of white privilege do I have that I didn't even know I had? That I've just been in my soup, as it were, whatever was handed down to me by society, by my parents, by my peers, by my friends. And then to think about the people of color that have been in my life all along, that I had such a limited awareness of what their lives were like. I thought I understood racism. I thought I understood their pain, but I didn't. And I think the embarrassment really just points back to the white privilege, that I've just been living a life that hasn't been touched by this. And even though I thought I knew, I didn't. And you're right. There's no way that we can totally understand each other's pain. Just like, I think when it comes to men trying to understand women's pain, I don't think that's possible. And when you were talking about that we need to listen and believe to the trauma, I was thinking about, because I'm a rape survivor and an incest survivor, and it's like, if you haven't lived through that, you're not going to be able to empathize, and you need to believe me. And that's been one of the things that we've done with survivors, is believe them, let them tell their stories and have their voices heard. So yeah, when I was talking about empathy, I was actually talking about empathy for self, because if you're mired in your shame, if you're going to stay in your shame, you're going to keep perpetrating.
Yeah,
that's a guarantee. So if you really want to clean up your act and change your behavior, you're going to have to get rid of that shame and get into action.
Yes, so true. And I love how you talked about your denial. And if you've read Ibram Kendi's book, Anti-Racist, denial is the drum of racism. So now that everybody's becoming aware and can, the first step is getting out of the denial. And this is a real problem. These people are not lying. This is how they feel, because feelings aren't wrong. Your feelings are your feelings. And a lot of, what we see and hear on social media is making people wrong for feeling this way, believing that way. And your feelings aren't wrong. But what we get to do is have a deeper awareness. And I love what you said, not have empathy for yourself and your experience, and not stay mired in shame, because what you focus on grows. So if you can change your focus to, okay, what action can I do to make amends, to be better, to get it right, as opposed to wanting to be right? How can I expand my knowledge and my resources of education so that I could fully understand and believe and hear more stories that may inspire me to action, because I know a lot of people don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Like, there's so much. How do I vote? What do I do? What do I say? What if I make a mistake? What if I this? And because you get into that, I don't want to continue to embarrass myself. Feel the shame and guilt of doing something wrong. You don't do something. So how do you heal? How do you move through that? I'm going to say not past it, but just go through it and come out the other side.
So I really think that when it comes to making amends, you need to check with the victims, the people who've been perpetrated against them, find out how they need to have the amends to look like. This isn't, you don't get to decide that. And so for myself, yeah, right? for myself, I found that the shame and the embarrassment was causing me to not even want to talk about racism. I was like, because just what you said, I might make a mistake. Well, how about just, yeah, you're gonna make a mistake, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And personally, I have chosen to get active in launching a series of podcasts about racism. But it's my friend Sophia Leva-Marie who's taking the lead. She's the one that's deciding what questions are we going to address and what are we going to do. And she is a Black woman. And I'm there to support that, to partner with her, to learn from her, to listen to her. The idea that I would actually take that on my own, it sounds like the pinnacle of hubris. Yeah. So taking that role of learning, I think is key for people that are white identified.
So if you were to name maybe your biggest aha or something that you learned that was a surprise for you, what would that be?
You know, this is going to be embarrassing to admit, but just immersing myself in the world of people of color and realizing there are so many different experiences, perspectives, and voices. It's not monolithic. And so that's, I think, getting beyond that idea that all Black people feel the same or have even the same opinions about racism, to just open up to the idea that no, there's a lot of different opinions and perspectives, and I want to hear all of them, quite frankly.
I love that you reference that. Really, I do, because I am coming across people. What about this Black person who said that? And I'm like, are you surprised that we have independent thought and we can differ on opinion? And you know what? But thank you for your honesty and sharing that. For a lot of white and white-presenting people, that is a surprise. Like, we're all not Democrats. We're all not liberals. We all don't believe the same thing. The only difference is the color of our skin and the experiences we have because of it. Yeah. Because of the color of our skin. And so in the white communities, your experiences are more of not negative because of the color of your skin, are there more negative experiences because of the color of our skin, which is one of the differences. And how we're raised a little bit differently because the color of our skin is always a factor in how we are raised. Not that just we're raised, we are raised in two-parent households, we are raised with loving parents and grandparents, siblings and children, but when our parents send us out in the world, it's with a different set of awarenesses and rules to keep us safe because of the color of our skin, which is hard for white people to even fathom. And I love that the awakening is happening.
It's almost impossible to imagine it.
Yeah.
If you haven't lived through it. I think it's going to take a long time for me to get exactly what that looks like.
Yeah, but you're on the journey, and I think that is wonderful. I think it's wonderful that you guys are creating this this podcast about sacred rage. Tell me a little bit about the rage part, because that intrigues.
Yes, well, so Sophia's vision, actually, Sophia and I have known each other for a few years, and we had done some other podcasts about sacred rage. And I'm an anger management coach. I coach couples that are experiencing domestic violence, even. I mean, I work with some serious anger. Mm-hmm. And so we had done a couple, and she contacts me, and she said, I think it's time for us to do another one. And let's make this one about racism. And I'm like, I started like, no, I don't think. She goes like, no, I want you. And I'm like, okay. So it's been a real, just working with her on this project has been a growth learning experience for me. But the rage that we are looking, when we talk about sacred rage, we were looking at the protests, and we were thinking about, so there's like all of this anger, right? And how do we help people transmute that into positive forward movement? How do we help people connect with themselves in a way that's sustainable? Because I know as an activist that anger has a lot of times it has a tendency to burn out, right? And I've been an activist now for a quarter of a century, and you have to know how to sustain that activism so that it doesn't burn out. And I'll tell you, I watched a police station burn down on a television, station one night, and I was like, "Yay!" And but I also realized that's not actually gonna that made me like a exclamation mark. And I actually believe there's all kinds of room for different types of activism. Exactly. But we're really focusing on wanting to help people's hearts feel at peace with themselves so that they can use that anger to anchor into big action. Action.
Yeah. No, I think that's wonderful that you do that kind of work. Like in one of my programs, it's called Sustainable Ally Leadership Intensive, because it gets to be sustained. I did a webinar the other night, and there were a number of people on there who were so gung-ho in the beginning, and now they're kind of moving in and out. They have that freedom to move in and out of it as well. As soon as there's another incident, you'll get back into it. If not, you can go on business as usual. And with a lot of people who are not Black, who have that luxury. So how do you embark on something that's sustainable, that you don't get to move in and out of? And that's one of the things that I teach in my program as well. How do you create sustainable action? Do you have to go out there and protest every day of your life? No, but what does it mean for you? What does that look like? Is it, I love that you say that you're immersing yourself into the stories and in communities of Black people so that you can learn more about the personal stories, above what you experienced yourself, and asking your Black friends, your Black colleagues, not to teach you, not to take on that extra burden because we are exhausted, but just to share in a way that helps you help them, or not them as individuals, but us as a whole. Like, if they're willing to contribute to your growth in that area, that's beautiful. If you have a friend like that, or if you have something you're thinking about doing and you want to run it by them to see, is this offensive? Do you think this will help? This is what I'm planning on doing. What do you think? And just kind of see, just get curious.
I don't ask my Black friends to teach me. What I do is I ask them how I can help. And then I stay curious. So I'm observant. I'm paying attention. I'm doing my own diligence as far as learning and growing. But I agree that that emotional labor is no thanks. I understand what it's like when somebody wants me to do emotional labor for them and they're not recognizing that that's what they're asking for. So I'm pretty sensitive to that.
Yeah,
I'm much more interested in how can I be of assistance, how can I be of support, how can I show up, and what do you need? Yeah. So,
yeah.
but curiosity is a great antidote to fear. So if you're afraid, and you're shame based, then you want to have some empathy for yourself. It's like, okay, yeah, I didn't know, I've been in denial, and that's okay. Let's move on. How can I make amends? How can I take responsibility for any harm that I've created? And how can I get in there and help? So yeah, and as far as learning, to me, that's about curiosity, not about asking other people to do emotional labor for me.
So appreciative. I always like to tell my clients, get curious before you get furious, because I see a lot of anger and lashing out on social media that's coming from anger. And I like to say, get curious, hear each other's hearts, see where some of these things that may be triggering you are coming from a point of curiosity. I've reached out to people that have said things that I was emotionally triggered by and hurt, and reached out and I'm curious as to why you believe that, why you think that, why you said that, why you posted that. And I might get to know you better. And I think, and I'd love to share with you, if you're open, how that affected me and why.
That is incredibly powerful and brave.
Yeah. But not everyone is brave enough to take me up on it. And I reach out through a DM or a private message. I don't have space for that right now, or they get busy and they don't want to, because that fear of, I like to say, they don't really want to get it right. They still want to be right about why they're right and why they said that. So they're not even open to having a one-on-one, because I want you to hear my heart. I've had a couple of really powerful conversations with people who have accused me of being a racist because of what I post, or, had some challenges of some of the things that I post, and thought something about me. And I know where my heart's coming from. And so instead of me being all hurt about it, I'm like, you know what, let's have a conversation about it so that we can understand each other better and where our perspective is coming from. And I'm always surprised that a lot of people are not willing to get on a Zoom with me, not on a public forum where we're safe among our little keyboard and we can get all right and righteous, and then turn away and have this one-on-one with me. Some have, some haven't, but I'm at probably a 50% close rate with people who are open to just having a conversation. And I usually only ask people that I know from other communities that we've had interactions before. I don't go out to complete strangers who are saying things that really trigger me, because I don't, that's too much emotional labor. But if you had said something and you and I've had experiences together, I would say, erotica. Let's get on a call, because I really want to know what the inspiration was for what you shared and what you said. Because
I want to extend an invitation to you. First of all, I just want to tell you, 50% close rate, that's pretty damn good.
I know, I'm hard on myself.
I mean, it's a hot topic. But also, if I ever post something, because I want to learn and grow. So if I ever post something on my Facebook feed that triggers you, please reach out to me. I would love to have a conversation about that.
Oh, and I would, and I would let you know that, and here's why. And it doesn't make me right. Yeah. But I think it's good for you to get a perspective of how it lands for people of color, if it's about that, Absolutely. And maybe you'll ask another friend, like, how does this sound? Like, this was my intention, but maybe it came off wrong. And
I know that just because if something triggering you, that doesn't mean it would trigger another Black friend of mine. But I want to tell you, as a white person, one of my fears is that my Black friends aren't telling me that I'm being offensive. So I have a question for you. What could I do? What could I bring to my Black friends that would give them make them, no, that's not even the word I want to say. I don't want to use the word make, and I want to use the word give, but that would help open up any conversation that we might not have had for the last 10, 20 years, where maybe I was triggering them or offending them and I had no clue. Mm-hmm. How can I open up that?
You can add an invitation and state your intention. People want to know, why do you want to have this conversation? What's the point? And so, just like you said to me, because I want to open up a conversation because I'm on a learning journey. Are you open to it? Because the last thing I want to do is put any emotional labor on you. Okay. About this. So that's not my intention. But if you're willing to, as a friend of mine, as a personal friend of mine, to go there with me. I mean, I had somebody reach out to me in the beginning of this new resurgence and reached out and said, I just want to apologize for what's going on in the world. And you're my only Black friend. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that? I want to apologize for the fact that you're my only Black friend. Like, he only knew one Black person that he could call a friend. And and he was somebody I hired to do work on my house, but we created a friendship in the meantime. And it was just like, it was so new and I was still raw in the grief of what was happening in the world that I was like, I didn't know how to take that. Like, what do you want? Absolutely. So I don't know. But as for me, and probably a lot of other Black people out there, we are guilty of protecting white fragility because it's been ingrained in us. My dad grew up in the Jim Crow South. And so if you made a white person uncomfortable, it could cause your death, and you could get seriously hurt for making a white person uncomfortable. So it's kind of ingrained in us, even with the police. Do not upset them. Do not challenge them. Do not challenge their authority, or you could end up dead or in jail or beat up or all of that. And the invitation for us to start being more honest, knowing that, we will make you uncomfortable and it will be triggering, as long as you have that mutual agreement, like, okay, I'm here. I took the bulletproof vest off. What you got? Give me your best shot. And, but also do it in a space of love and not judgment and not criticizing. But I'm really appreciative for people who really want to do better and want to get it right and have that desire in their heart, which is why I created the Intimacy of Race, because I knew there were a lot of people out there. But if you did it on your personal feed, like, you could get ripped a new one,
Totally.
For making a mistake. You can make mistakes in here all you want, and we will gently, pick you up and wipe off your boo-boos and tell you, okay, this is the direction that you go. And that's the intention.
Well, I love the fact that it's intimacy, because to me, I think that the desire that I have in my heart is I want to be more intimate with my Black friends. I want that whatever barriers that I didn't know that existed between us because of the race barrier of my privilege and my denial about the world that they were living in, or that they are living in, I should say. My heart desire would be like to find some way to bridge that gap, to become more intimate. And maybe, I don't know, I want to check with you. Do you think that is something that white people could actually focus on instead of the shame and the guilt, more about how do we bridge these barriers and become closer and more intimate with each other?
That's it. We got to get rid of the fear, the shame, the blame, the guilt, and the arrogance that comes with wanting to be right, because it is natural for white people to know better. And this is why you should do it, because that's been kind of the theme. And I think what's different this time about the movement is Black people are using their voices more to say, no, stop telling us what to do and how to do it and how it should look. Because we've done that for 400 years
Yeah, white savior's dead.
Yeah. Yeah, and just listen, and we can collaborate, we can put our heads together to create win-wins. And I just appreciate everybody that has a heart to make this sustainable, and to really, really kind of cut it off at the knees at the system. The system needs to be broken. The system is working just as it's been intended to work. And how can we show up in a way that makes a change to the system? And because the racism right now is the more you can learn from your Black friends and Black communities that you can learn from, the more you can make the changes in the system that was built by white people. And I think women have the power to do that. I mean, I love men. I'm married to a man. I just don't think that they have the compassion at a level that women do to make real change that's sustainable. That's just in my heart. I mean, I know there's a lot of them out there. I'm just blanketing as a whole. I think women collectively using our voices to create win-wins, because men are just inbred to win-lose, but women can create more this is me personally, have that ability to create more collaboration, because I notice women are being less competitive and more, how can I help you? How can I be supportive in general? That's what I'm noticing. And I'm blessed to be in communities like that. Let me put it that way. Maybe there are communities that are more competitive, but with Jessica's group, it's very supportive and collaborative. And I'm in some other really heart-centered, supportive, collaborative communities as well. And I think that's how we're going to really create sustainable change, and just keep it at the forefront,
Yes.
Like, how can we be more inclusive? What are we missing here? And make sure you have voices of color to give you that perspective as well in your businesses and communities. Thank you, love. This has been beautiful.
It really has. Thank you so much for making this space, for bringing compassion and an interest in intimacy to this. I'm just, there are a lot of different approaches to healing the racial divide right now, and I just really appreciate what you're bringing, Eva. Really do.
Thank you for sharing your time and your wisdom, and the fact that we can just let go of the shame and the blame and the guilt, and let's just take some committed action to, like, okay, how do we get this right? How do we figure this out? Yes. We don't have time to be mired in embarrassment, shame, and guilt, because we're all going to be embarrassed, shame, and guilted for the rest of our lives. We're never going to escape from that. Let's just, like, all right, what did I learn from that? And how can I move on? Yeah. Let's fail faster so we can get some things done, right?
Exactly.
All right, guys, thanks for joining Intimacy of Race, Coffee and Conversations with Veronica Monet. And I don't think, yes, next week I will see you again at 9 a.m. in the Intimacy of Race. Bye.